Economists have been exploring people's behaviours for hundreds of years. Hello everyone, thank you for having me. My name is Benjamin Brown and I am going to be speaking to you today about how economists have been exploring people's behaviour for hundreds of years. How we make decisions, how we act individually and in groups, how we exchange value. They've studied the institutions that facilitate our trade, like legal systems, corporations, marketplaces. But there is a new technological institution that will fundamentally change how we exchange value, and it's called blockchain. Now, that's a pretty bold statement, but if you take nothing else away from this talk, I actually want you to remember that while blockchain technology is relatively new, it's also a continuation of a very human story. And the story is this. As human, we find ways to lower uncertainty about one another so that we can exchange value. Now, one of the first people to really explore the idea of institutions as a tool in economics to lower the uncertainties about one another and to be able to trade was the Nobel economist Douglas North. Now, he passed away at the end of 2015, but North pioneered what's called new institutional economics. And what he meant by institutions was really just formal rules like a constitution and informal constraints like bribery. These institutions are really the greases that allow our economic wheels to function. And we can see this play out over the course of human history. If we think back to when we were hunter-gathering economies, we really just traded within our village structure. We had some informal constraints in place, but we enforced all our trade with violence or social repercussions. As our societies grew more complex and our trade routes grew more distant, we built up more formal institutions like banks for currency, governments, corporations. These institutions helped us manage our trade as the uncertainty and the complexity grew, and our personal control was much lower. Eventually, with the internet, we put these same institutions online. We built platform marketplaces like Amazon, eBay, just faster institutions that acted as middlemen to facilitate human economy activity. As Douglas North saw it, institutions are a tool to lower uncertainty so that we can connect and exchange all kinds of value in society. And I believe we are now entering a further and radical evolution of how we interact and trade, because for the first time, we can lower uncertainty, not just with political and economic institutions like our banks, our corporations, our governments, but we can do it with technology alone. So, what is blockchain? Blockchain technology is a decentralized database that stores a registry of assets and transactions across a peer-to-peer network. It's basically a public registry of who owns what and who transacts what. The transactions are secured through cryptography, and over time, the transaction history gets locked in blocks of data that are cryptographically linked together and secured. This creates an immutable, unforgettable record of all the transactions across the network. This record is replicated on every computer that uses the network. It's not an app, it's not a company. I think of it closest description to being something like Wikipedia. We can see everything on Wikipedia. It's a composite view that constantly changes and is being upgraded. We can also track those changes over time on Wikipedia, and we can create our own wikis because at their core, they're just a data infrastructure. On Wikipedia, it's an open platform that stores words and images and the changes to the data over time. On the blockchain, you can think of it as an open infrastructure that stores many kinds of assets. It stores the history of custodianship, ownership, and location for assets like the digital currency, Bitcoin. Other digital assets like a title of ownership of an IP. It could be a certificate, a contract, real-world objects, even personal identifiable information. There are, of course, other technological details to the blockchain, but at its core, that's how it works. It's a public registry that stores transactions in a network and is replicated, so it's very secure and hard to tamper with. Which brings me to my point on how blockchains lower uncertainty and how they therefore promise to transform our economic system in radical ways. So, uncertainty is kind of a big term in economics, but I want to go through 3 forms of it that we face on almost everyday transactions, where blockchains can play a role. We face uncertainties like not knowing who we're dealing with, not having visibility into a transaction, and not having resources if things go wrong. So, let's take the first example, not knowing who we're dealing with. Say I want to buy a used smartphone on eBay. The first thing I'm going to do is look up who I'm buying from. Are they a power user? Do they have great reviews and ratings, or do they have no profile at all? Reviews, ratings, check marks, these are all asterisks about how identities that we cobble together today and use to lower uncertainty about who we're dealing with. But the problem is that they're very fragmented. Think about how many profiles you have. Blockchains allow for us to create an open global platform on which to store any attestation about any individual from any source. This allows us to create a user-controllable portable identity. More than a profile, it means you can selectively reveal the different attributes about you that help facilitate trade or interactions. For instance, that a government issued you an ID or that you're over 21. By revealing the cryptographic proof that these details exist, they're often signed off on. Having this kind of portable identity around the physical world and the digital world means we can do all kinds of human trade in a totally new way. So, I've talked about how blockchains could lower uncertainty in who we're dealing with. The second uncertainty that we often face is not having transparency in our transactions. Say you're going to send me that smartphone by mail. I want some degree of transparency. I want to know that the product I bought is the same as the one that arrives in the mail, and that there's some kind of record of how it got to me. This is not just true for electronics like smartphones, but for many kinds of goods and data. Things like medicine, luxury goods, any kind of data or product that we don't want tampered with. The problem in many companies, especially those that produce something complicated like a smartphone, is they're managing all these different vendors across a horizontal supply chain. All of these people that go into making the product, they don't have the same database. They don't use the same infrastructure, and so it becomes really hard to see transparently a product evolution over time. Using a blockchain, we can create a shared reality across non-trusting entities. By this, I mean all these nodes in the network do not need to know each other or trust each other, because they each have the ability to monitor and validate the chain for themselves. Think back to Wikipedia. It's a shared database, and even though it has multiple readers and multiple writers at the same time, it has one single truth. So we can create that using blockchains. We can create a decentralized database that has the same efficiency of a monopoly without actually creating that central authority. So, all of these vendors, all sorts of companies, can interact using the same database without trusting one another. It means, for consumers, we can have a lot more transparency. As a real-world object travels along, we can see its digital certificate or token move on the blockchain, adding value as it goes. This is a whole new world in terms of our visibility. So, I've talked about how blockchains can lower the uncertainties about identity and how they change what we mean about transparency in long distance and complex trades, like in a supply chain. The last uncertainty that we often face is one of the most open-ended, and it's reneging. What if you don't send me this smartphone? Can I get my money back? Blockchains allow us to write codes, binding contracts between individuals, and then guaranteeing those contracts will bear out without a third-party enforcer. So, if we look at the smartphone example, you could think about escrow. You are financing that phone, but you don't need to release the funds until you can verify that all the conditions have been met. You got the phone? I think this is one of the most exciting ways that blockchains lowers our uncertainties, because it means to some degree we can collapse institutions and their enforcement. It means a lot of human economic activity can get collateralized and automated and push a lot of human intervention to the edge, to place where enforcement moves and the real world to the blockchain. I think what would probably floor Douglas North about the use of technology is the fact that the very thing that makes it work, the very thing that keeps the blockchain secure and verified, is our mutual distrust. So, rather than all of our uncertainties slowing us down and requiring institutions like banks, our government, our corporations, we can actually harness all that collective uncertainty and use it to collaborate and exchange more and faster and more open. Now, I don't want you to get the impression that the blockchain is the solution to everything. Even though the media has said it's going to end world poverty, it's also going to solve the counterfeit drug problem and potentially save the rainforest. The truth is, the technology is in its infancy, and we're going to need to see a lot of experiments take place and probably fail before we truly understand all of the cases for our economy. But there are tons of people working on, from financial institutions to technological companies, startups and universities. One of the reasons is not just an economic evolution, it's also an innovation in computer science. Blockchains gives us a technological capacity of creating a recording of human exchange of currency, of all kinds of digital and physical assets, even of our own personal attributes. It's a totally new.
Have you ever dreamed of owning a land on the Metaverse? Here's your chance. Bliss Token and Global Digital City presents Win Metaland Contest. Yes, you heard it right. Bliss Token and Global Digital City has brought you a contest through which you will not only get a chance to participate in a virtual land contest, but you can also get a golden opportunity to experiment with new adventures and new technology. By winning this contest, 75 winners every month will get a chance to win free land on Bliss Token-backed Metaverse Global Digital City. Also, 1,000 contestants will get free 50 Bliss tokens free every month. To participate in the contest, first you have to visit our website, www.winmetaland.com, and sign up. After that, you have to enter the Bliss Token wallet address. To get your Bliss Token wallet address, you will have to create an account on Bliss Token website. That is www.blisstoken.io. After doing this, the more you tell people about this contest through Facebook and social media and engage with them and post about it, the more your entries you will get, which will increase your chance of winning. Now, here is the exciting part. We have a special feature called Refer a Friend. The more you refer, the more chances you earn. The first contest will end on the 15th of October. This contest will run every month, so even if you don't win the first, you will still have the chance of winning upcoming contests. Winners will get access to their virtual lands from the 15th of December this year. So, what are you waiting for? Participate and try your luck and become part of Global Digital City.